On this episode, we're diving into the history of a ride that once graced the grounds of Kings Island. We're talking about Flight Commander. Hello, everyone. Alongside Ryan Sir, I'm Don Helbig, and this is Tower Topics.
Tower Topics is a podcast by Kings Island fans for Kings Island fans because that's who we are and that's who we care about.
The Ryan Flight Commander took its maiden flight in 1990. It was located in Coney Mall, where the Kings Mills Antique Autos now reside. Did you know, Ryan, I was one of the first riders at the media event back in 1990.
Well, yeah, back then you were a big deal, so I'm not surprised you're invited to take part of the maiden flight back on its media day. Well, let's go into the details. Flight Commander was an Intamin creation, a rotating flat ride with 22-person capsules.
Now, what made it an interesting ride was each capsule had these joysticks, allowing riders to control their ascent, descent, and flips at heights up to 60 feet. So you really controlled your own experience.
Yeah, I do remember that. Now, Flight Commander operated at Kings Island from 1990 until 1995. It was nestled near the racer on a distinct concrete pad, which many of you would be familiar with that have been around a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Now, getting to Flight Commander, guests would navigate past the Coca Cola refreshment stand that was located right near it. They would follow a pathway that led them to the ride's queue and its iconic pad.
Yeah, so back in 1989, King's Entertainment Company announced Flight Commander's development, a symbolic leader among aircraft situated in the former Zodiac location.
And then by 1990, construction was complete, unveiling the thrilling Flight Commander to Kings Island's guests.
Yeah, and then in 1991, it marked a tragic turn of events. A 32-year-old intoxicated woman fell from the ride, exposing a design flaw. The incident led to a temporary closure, safety modifications, and a poignant reopening in 1992.
Ryan, I was on my way home from Cedar Point when I heard the news about the incident. I had gone up to ride Mean Streak, which had been introduced a couple weeks before, and I'm listening to the radio 700 WLW, and I hear about that, and I'm just stunned. Um, the park had an impeccable safety record, and it's not something that you expect to hear, and it's one of the more unfortunate things that has happened in Kings Island's history that began in 1972.
Yeah, certainly one of the darkest days in park history. The investigation revealed several factors, including a lack of a seat divider, the rider riding alone, and an unlocked restraint as part of the issue.
Yeah, I remember the ride being closed the rest of 1991. Resuming again in 1992. But it seemed to be like a problem-plagued ride after that. It'd have a lot of downtime, and it just wasn't something that as you were going to Kings Island, you started to plan your day and wanting to ride it. Just because you didn't really know day to day if it was going to be open or things like that.
Yeah, and then the final chapter was pinned in 1995 when Paramount's, at the time, Kings Island, announced its closure and eventual demolition. The popularity had declined since the incident in 1991.
Interesting. The ride did find a new home at Flamingo Land in the UK. It operated as Top Gun from 1996 to 2004, so it did live on and was able to give a few more rides before permanently being retired.
Yeah.
Now, the Flight Commander location, let's talk about
Hmm.
that. That has witnessed a remarkable transformation over the years. You go back to 1972 through today. It hosted attractions like the Zodiac, the Launchpad, the Euro Bobbles, and then culminating with the current Kings Island Antique Autos, Kings Mills Antique Autos in 2019. And, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that was the site of the Dinosaurs Alive Party Pavilion.
Yeah, I remember when you guys did Dinos After Dark, how the queue would stretch down Coney Mall, and then you would make it up to the pad where the flight commander was, and that's where they would give you your juice because you got juice and a s'more. But I always thought it was weird because you got your juice and it was like a little Dixie cup and you drink it, and then halfway through the trail you get your s'more, and the s'more, like s'mores in general, just dry out your mouth, so you could never have used juice more than uh, halfway through the trail when you had your juice long before. But you also there was a bunch of media days and stuff up there too. I think Dinosaurs Alive's media day was up there, and then a few haunt ones as well.
Yeah, Yeah, there were different, media preview events that were hosted there. I do remember Halloween Haunt being up there, one of the early years of it, 2008, 2009 range.
Mhm.
It was a good setting for that, for Haunt. I mean, it was perfect. Outdoors at night, you had the fog. It was near Terror was right by there, so it was near one of the signature attractions. So yeah, I mean, it's had so many purposes over the years.
Yeah, and then we should also discuss. We mentioned this in a previous Tower Topics, but it was rumored, and I guess you confirmed that they had considered moving the Flying Eagles there as well, and they would have sat on that pad.
Yeah, that was briefly discussed when they were looking to build what is now known as um, well, it was the Italian job when it came in, but I think that that would have been a perfect spot for that ride.
I completely agree. It would have made it sense to kind of bring it back to the heart of Coney Mall, and then having it in that prominent location, like kind of above the midway, would have been really, really nice. But let's talk about the Flight Commander itself. So, one of my earliest memories of the Flight Commander, and I didn't write it until after the incident, but they had instructions in there where it was, forward makes the pod go down, backward makes it go up, left makes it barrel roll and to the left, and right makes it barrel roll to the right. And my friend and I didn't see the joystick, so we kept on like trying to jerk our bodies in that direction, thinking that the ride would react to it. So we're going 1, 2, 3, and then we'd jerk our bodies to the left. And then as we were climbing out, I saw the joystick. We got to ride it again. But then my second memory of it was going to the park with my sister, and she was not to the point where she's older than me, but she was not riding looping roller coasters yet. So what I did
Hmm.
was got on the ride with her and then turned it upside down, and then kept on uh, like oscillating the joystick back and forth, so we stayed upside down. So all of her weight was against the restraint and stuff. So I was a bad kid, but those are some of my
Yeah,
memories of it.
what I liked about it was just the ability to create your own experience on it. You could keep doing the barrel rolls if you wanted. You could ride upside down pretty much the whole ride if you wanted to. You could go up, down. I mean, it was interesting. You just felt like you were in control of your own experience, and I thought that what made it fun. Um, there were a number of times I was in line ready to ride it, and mechanical issue, or and it was shut down. So there were little things like that, but overall, I think it's one of the rides that it didn't have a very long shelf life, and it's notable for the wrong reason. And but those who did experience it, for the most part, they enjoyed the ride.
Yeah, yeah, I have fond memories of it. Another thing that I thought was weird was that it's the first ride, and you see this on carnival rides and stuff, especially like music boxes and stuff. But like at the very top, uh, the thing that covered up what the motor or whatever was at the top of the actual vertical pole was made of like canvas. And I remember thinking that, like, they were gonna replace that at some time with something, like, made of metal, because I was, like, 6 or 7 years old. But that was my initial thought with it, but, yeah, you're right, and then it did exist for another 8 years at, Flamingo Land. I guess we don't really know offhand, I mean, unless you know offhand, why it was removed in 2004. I assumed that it was more of an end of life thing. They got done of, messing with it since it was a secondhand ride and it probably had similar downtime and so on. Um, but yeah, so it closed in 95 and then it opened there in 96. So that didn't take long.
No, not at all. And like I said, I think the interesting thing for me is just all the different attractions, activities, that have taken place in that area where that ride was.
Yeah, one thing I do remember, and I would always show my friends this is, so if you're facing kind of like antique autos, if you to the left of that, there used to be like that speed pitch game where you try to like like you throw a
Hmm.
baseball and try to match the speed or throw it faster or whatever. Well,
Yes, for speed. Yeah.
yeah. So if you walked to the edge of that cage and looked to the right, you could see like the old decrepit queue for it, including they didn't have the TV in there, but they had like the box that contained the TV for fun, not fun TV, QTV at the time. So like that was kind of almost like a haunted house right there in the middle of Kings Island because it was this queue from this long defunct attraction that stood there for a really long time. Do you think that they would have somehow used that queue if they did if they put the Flying Eagles there? I guess there wasn't a way up because they filled it
Yeah,
up, didn't they?
yeah, I think you would have had the use for that queue.
Yeah. Well, I remember seeing like if you look down the center, because the center of the actual flight commander ride, like the vertical pole, went all the way down through the queue, and then you walked like almost like a spiral staircase to the top, right? It was one or two stories
Right.
up. But they filled that in and they put like, so if you looked into the queue where you would normally go in was just like a concrete wall. Um, but they did use that queue for Killmart for the first year, didn't they? So they didn't they use that?
I don't know, 100% that they did. I just remember they, kind of routed them down Coney Mall a little bit, but I don't know if they used it or not. You might be right about that.
Yeah, if anyone remembers, anyone waited that in that queue for for Killmart, I'd love to hear. But I'm pretty sure they did. I thought that was I never did it, but I was pretty sure that I remember seeing that. So that was really interesting. And then, the so what did you have listed here? The Zodiac was there, but the Zodiac was not on that pad, right? That was a different device. Did they take out the Zodiac and then put in the Flight Commander in the same spot, or was the Zodiac like they clear the area and then put in the Flight Commander?
Zodiac was close, like real close to where that was.
Okay. So it didn't occupy that concrete pad that everything else did.
I think that was built up a little bit for Flight Commander. So yeah, I mean it was in that area for it,
Okay. And then Launchpad for
but not on the exact spot. I mean that the Zodiac was much much bigger than what Flight Commander was.
okay. Yeah, so and then, Launchpad, for those of you who don't know, was just a Euro bungee. So you'd hook, bungee cords to yourself and jump on a trampoline, which awesome, cool. I've never done that before, but if you ever want to, go to Pigeon Forge, there's plenty of opportunities. And then Euro bubbles. I thought about doing that, but that was that's like terrifying. So you go in this inflated bubble, and then I guess you would like so you're the only one in it. It's like 5 or 6 feet in diameter, and you would walk around on water in this inflated bubble, which makes me wonder where like the recycled oxygen comes from. You know, I don't know. I never did it.
I never did it either. My daughter did, but I never did.
Yeah, and then ultimately, so I guess there was nothing there for quite a while. Well, no, I'm sorry. The Dinosaurs Alive thing was the intermediary there, where there was the party pad, and I I know you probably can't directly comment on this, but I remember the intention was kids can have their birthday parties up there and stuff. I never saw it happen, so I'm guessing it didn't fly the way that you wanted the pterodactyl to fly. But so it's that it's that vague. So Dinosaurs Alive came in 2011. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that the party pad thing was probably punted on that year, maybe 2012, and then it was vacant until it was destroyed, right, when it was raised for Antique Autos. So now it's completely gone. But yeah, Antique Autos kind of took care of an eyesore though. And Antique Autos is a good looking location within the park, so that's kind of good. But yeah, they had that empty pad with a empty queue line under it that was kind of used for a couple decades before it was torn down in favor of the antique cars. But I do miss the Flight Commander, don't you?
I do. Like I said, it was fun. You were able to, control your own experience with it. Um, it was, a unique flat ride compared to the other flat rides in the park at the time. You'd mentioned earlier, things that were around it. You talked about the speed pitch thing. Did you ever do that?
I did it, but not at Kings Island. I don't even remember how to play. I was kind of little, like. Well, no, they took it out when I was about 20, so I wasn't that little, but compared to now, I was little. But no, I didn't. Did you?
I did. I remember 1982, and I still have the certificate that they would give you, and I won a batting helmet. But so in 1982, I threw 82, and then when I tried it in the later years, I threw 32. So there was a big difference in speed from when it first came out.
Yeah. That was one of those things that was just quietly removed, the speed pitch thing, and I guess it doesn't really need a closing ceremony because it's a speed pitch game, but there's other stuff that I just take for granted that was, like, at the
Yeah.
park, and then it's like, "Oh god, that's gone," and, some of the things that I remember are, the radio control cars that were over by, like, Adventure Express, where you could pay and you had like a steering wheel and stuff and you were controlling one of the radio control cars and it could drive over stuff and whatever. And then I believe they had radio control boats in that lagoon, kind of across from it, like in Oktoberfest, like where Viking Fury is. Does that make sense to you?
Hmm.
Yeah.
I remember the cars, not the boat so much, but I remember the
The boats
cars.
might have been pretty short lived. And then, so I was looking, I ordered a copy of the unofficial guidebook to Paramount's Kings Island, which was written by Charles Infacino by Orange Fraser Publishing. I remember all this because he would talk about it a lot. But and a lot of it was because the book is almost certainly out of print because it's, way dated now. But I didn't want to forget like who manufactured some of these old Coney rides and stuff, and he had all that information on there. I actually love the book, but one thing that was in there that I had forgotten about is, Simon Says. Do you remember that? Does that spark anything for you?
Oh yeah,
And that was kind of where
it
the
does.
original VIP lounge was. Actually, I think it was the same shelter as the original VIP lounge, and it was like a VR thing. Because Kings Island had VR for forever. Like, I remember, like, my parents would give me $10 and drop me off at the park, and at the time, you could eat a meal and play some video games on $10, but, I remember playing VR games in the arcade in the games building, shall we say, where Coney Barbecue is now. Like, I remember there being VR there, and then I think they had it in the arcade that's there currently, like the big arcade, but it was, like, afterward. So that's not where I played it. I played it on the
Hmm.
other side of Coney Mall, but it's funny how the VR stuff has been around in the theme park industry, and then it got real big with the VR rides on, Iron Dragon and Kraken Unleashed and all that stuff. And now Apple's gonna take over the world with that stuff. So it's kind of funny, but yeah, awesome, cool. Any final thoughts about the Flight Commander?
Just that it was unique, and it had its time, and I'm glad I got to experience it.
Yeah, I am too. For you, it's a given that you got to experience it because you were like an adult. But for me, being like little and a daredevil, and I specifically sought out that ride and rode it because of the incident. At the time, I was just like thinking I was just like, you know, this daredevil or whatever. But as an adult, I'm glad I did it because that's another ride I can tell people about and that I got to experience and ride. But yeah, very cool. Cool walk down memory lane. I haven't thought about that ride in a long time. But hey, I'm Ryan Sir along with Don Helbig, and this is Tower Topics.